transformation is not just about words, it is about story, about vision, about courage. When leaders communicate transformation, they are not merely explaining a change, they are rather painting a picture of possibility. And today, with a belief to rekindle our drive to usher faith in our transformational journey, I, Dr. Shivani Bakshi Koshri, Assistant Professor of Communication at Seoul School of Business Design, welcome you all to another episode of Adventure in Learning with Anil Sachdev sir, organized by Center for Leadership and Human Values under the aegis of School of Inspired Leadership. We have, to grace the occasion, with us, Mr. Pathik R. Kothari, former Executive Vice President L&T, former board member Schneider India, and with an extensive experience of 53 years, Sir has joined us with his gracious presence to enrich the discussion under the lens of strategy, along with his deep reflection on TQM journey since 1992 to 1999 with Anil sir, having formulated leadership development plans like Lakshya and two perspective plans at L&T and playing a pivotal role in the soft technology to ushering transformation in all aspects of leadership development. Sir seasoned in mentoring senior leadership teams. Currently, he's serving as the senior advisor to McKinsey and helping 6K students in school transformation and thus contributing to social empowerment. So we can say that he refuses to retire or superannuate. With us, we also have Ms. Nupur Arya, Senior Facilitator with Harvard Business Impact. She brings us her deep and diverse experience across geographies, sectors, and functions. Currently serving as the Chief of Strategy and Staff and Board Advisor to International Amusement LTS, India's largest entertainment company. She's spent her initial years in global leadership roles in investment banking and private equity roles at Lehman Brothers, New York, Nomura in Hong Kong, and IFC in New Delhi. She also coaches startup founders at the IAM Startup Incubator and is frequently invited as a guest speaker to various higher education institutions, leading edtech firms. And without much ado, may I please request Sri Anil Sachdev to please open with his wonderful remarks. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I want to begin by invoking the spirit of all the people in my life who have contributed to where I stand today. And I want each one of you to think of the people who have inspired you to reach wherever you have reached today. So my spiritual teachers, Swami Chinmayananda, my parents, my wife, my family, and all the wonderful colleagues right from Tatas to Soil today. So I just want to thank them. You know, this whole subject of transformation, which we say change for the better. Now, what is that better we have in mind? So we are at some position somewhere as individuals, as society, as organizations. And we are being called upon to a higher level contribution. That higher purpose, that impact to make a difference. This spirit is kindled sometimes in individuals when they begin to ask new questions in their life. Sometimes in organizations, people begin to ask, why are we doing what we are doing? And indeed, in society, when people are dissatisfied with the way they take responsibility for the way they are living now. So I think this, when it gets kindled, and my experience teaches me that it doesn't take a huge number of people to make transformation. If there are a few kindred souls, if there are people, a few people who are very inspired and begin to vibrate at the new frequency together, it only takes a handful of people to bring about significant change, whether it's in society or organizations or indeed, of course, in our own communities. So that's what I want to say. And of course, if you look at how these things happen, there is a lot to discuss about that. There is a phase which we call preparing for transformation. There is, of course, then envisioning transformation. Then it is enabling transformation. And then, of course, continuing the discipline of the new things we are required to do to continuously keep learning and taking responsibility for the direction that we have chosen. So that's what this is about. But my colleagues here are such gifted co-hosts that I would just love to learn through their questions and offer whatever experience I have. And I'm sure their questions are even more important than the answers I may be giving. So please go ahead. So
may I please invite Pathik sir to probably begin with your reflections. Yeah. Can you have your questions, please?
Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Shivani, for a very sweet introduction. One can always say whether do I deserve it or not. And Anil ji, thank you so much for inviting me to be the co-host. And today morning, I was just, reflecting and thinking as to which year, because I wanted to test my memory. So I was thinking in which year we started. And, very briefly, in 1992, we read something like Aisha at Alwar implements JIT. And, our inventories were very high. When I say our, means L&T's inventory were very high. So our CEO says, why don't you go and see Alwar? And then we say, it's a small tractor plant. They have done something. They have done JIT and all those things. Came back and then they say, there is an ICER Consulting. And they say, we have not heard the name of ICER Consulting. But anyhow, that's a story, and we put faith behind the leader. And that is what is Anil. I think today, I always say one of my guru, one of my mentor, one of my role model is Anil. So I think I would like to start with that basically.
We seem to have lost him. So no.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll come back. Yeah.
So you lost me at what point, Anil?
No, nothing. No, we haven't lost you. If your voice is still there, we can't see you, but we can hear you. So go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear and see you both. So please go ahead. Now we can't hear you, Pathik. So but if you like, maybe Nupur, you can begin the question while Pathik is sorting out his technology. So Nupur, please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation. And I want to get started in the interest of time and dive right in. Anil, you started framing today's conversation in a beautiful way, which is looking at the macro view of society at large, looking at organizations, and then looking at individuals, and really thinking about what that transformation might look like. Pathikji, we can hear you now.
Yeah, can you hear me back?
Yes, we can. Yes.
I think so. Nupur, you want to continue?
Nay, Pathikji, I just got started, so feel free to jump right in.
So I was just saying that, on my reflection when I was remembering of 92, and then I say, it's a great opportunity to learn once again from Anil ji. If I say, transformation journey, what I would say is that I take transformation into possibly three parts. The first one is, transformation of the self. Then comes transformation of the organization. And then you take transformation of the society, or you say community, or you say nation as a whole. Now, if you look to today's scenario in India, with Viksit Bharat in 2047, if we have to achieve that, tremendous amount of transformation will be required. And one can always say that, yes, it will be required, but each one of us, if we think, what is my role going to be in that transformation? And even what type of transformation I as an individual need. So that is the subject that possibly we can dwell more on, of that three layers of transformation of self, organization, and the country. And towards that, my question to Anil would be that what are the similarities in transformation of an individual, transformation of the company, and transformation of the nation? And then if you can share some of your personal experiences in any one of these three, or maybe if possible on all the three, though I had the experience of transformation of L&T along with you, but would leave it to you for this question.
Thank you very much, Pathik. That's a very powerful question. I want to say that transformation can be from two perspectives. When a handful of people, as I was saying, come together, let's talk about what happens to those individuals. When certain individuals are inspired to take responsibility, something begins to happen in their heart. They begin to resonate. They can see the future in their own imagination. They can say, this, I can make life so much better for the people I deeply care about. I can make my own life much better because I love myself, for what I can possibly do with my own life. So when you begin to envision, and it begins with some kind of a visualization, and you can actually see the future. Our spiritual teacher, often Swami Chinmayananda, said that when you can imagine the future and you have Shraddha, you have faith, and you are inspired, then many things begin to happen. Because when you are genuinely committed to the kind of change that you are wanting to bring about, there is that authenticity, there is that deep love in your heart for the cause. Then people come around to support you. Like-minded people come. I mean, there are many books like The Secret, for example. When you are beginning to vibrate at a new frequency, you begin to attract those kind of people in your life. All of a sudden, you meet somebody as you thought it is by chance, but it's because you are emanating that energy. People come around, they support you, they begin to become part of the conversation. Look at what happened in the Hunger Project. Many years back, as you know, there were famines. There were those pictures of Ethiopia and people in Africa dying of hunger. And some people in the world began to have a new conversation, which was later on termed as the Hunger Project. And when they began to talk about it, and millions of people got involved into that whole movement called the Hunger Project, people began to do small little things. People said, let's grow our own food in our kitchen garden. People said, let's stop wasting food. People said, let's find a way to enable those who don't have food to grow their own food. So if you read about the Hunger Project, it's one of the biggest revolutions that took place simply because some people cared enough and they began to take responsibility for what they believed in. That's at a global level. A global revolution took place to solve the hunger problem in the world. But now let's talk about nearer home. We have the people in the cooperative sector as a part of this call. When some people in Gujarat began to care deeply about the state of the lives of the farmers, all of a sudden, a new movement started. And I think because some people were deeply inspired, they begin to take responsibility. Dr. Deepak Chopra, he describes this in a very unusual way. He says, just like In a caterpillar, there are some cells which begin to vibrate in a new frequency, and they know that they are the body of the butterfly, which are captured in the current body of the caterpillar. So they begin to create the cocoon. And something very interesting, Deepak Chopra said this for the first time to us, and I was very surprised at the word. He said, pathologists begin to call these cells by a new name. They are called imaginal cells. People can imagine the future. And when a critical mass of such people come together, there is a positive restlessness in their hearts. They can see the future. They can see the plight of the current reality. And that creative tension between the purpose, where they want to go, where they want to transform to, and the current reality creates that creative tension in their heart and gives them the energy, gives them the deep commitment and love, which inspires this. And they begin to attract like-minded people together, and they begin to take responsibility. After that comes a period when you have enough of critical mass, where you have aroused the hearts of several people. Now you are together envisioning the future together. You are co-creating the future. This is not one person saying, follow me, but this is a group of people who are equally inspired, who are co-creating that visualization of the future. Then they begin to come together. Then they begin. Tilla, you will have to mute this device, please, which is unwittingly coming in the way. Okay, all right. So once we envision the future, then of course people begin to take the first steps to say, okay, at a personal level, the first steps are, what is the one thing that I need to do now? And very often it is, what do I need to learn? For example, many times people have a crisis, like a health crisis in their life. Then when they begin to take responsibility, saying, what do I need to learn about my habits, about my food, about my sleeping, about what I do? So when they begin to learn, then they begin to get surrounded by people they can learn from. And then they begin to practice new behaviors at the individual level, which begins to show change. And when that begins to happen, they get encouraged to do more. Similarly, in an organization level, when they prepare a plan, then when people come together, they begin to envision what are the skills they need to learn, because very often transformation requires new behaviors and new skills, and people have to unlearn some of the earlier behaviors and begin to learn the new things. So initially you learn the new vocabulary because you're not familiar with certain things, and you begin to, let's say, an AI-led transformation. Some of us are not that familiar, but we begin to learn the new vocabulary. And once we begin to then make some experiments and we begin to work, as we know, on some pilots, so whether it's a personal life or an organizational life, you very carefully think of a pilot. Pilot is not the most complex thing you want to do, but pilot is an area where we have the maximum chance of learning something, experimenting something, and gaining useful insights based on the pilot. Then you can begin to scale things. You can begin to make things happen. And when things move from the pilot stage to the expansion stage, during that period, new behaviors begin to emerge. When behaviors begin to emerge, you begin to get encouragement from others. Some time back, along with my morning walk, I started running a little bit. At my age, I'm not supposed to run, but I started running it. Now, all of a sudden, the younger people in my community, in the morning, they began to applaud me that here is this old man now trying to make a run, and they were very. So I enjoyed that here are the young people who are noticing this older member of the community taking responsibility. When that happens, people encourage you, your loved ones encourage you, people in organizations begin to recognize people, and recognition is not giving people more money, but recognition is what you feel from the inside. You're receiving genuine appreciation. You also have a private aspect of private victory. And then when that begins to happen, behavior transformation begins to happen. And when that happens, you can expand the effort and number of things happen. But I want to just caution you one thing, and then I'll stop talking. When you are putting a lot of effort to learn, even when you begin a new exercise program, a new diet program for personal health or something else, including a behavioral change towards, for example, developing greater emotional intelligence. In the beginning, you are putting a lot of effort, but the results are not coming. And very often people give up at that stage. People give up. But the good news is that if you stay with the focus, if you deeply love the cause you're working for, and if you keep on putting in the effort and sincerely learning, breakthrough is around the corner. And people sometimes are not able to understand that they are very close to making a breakthrough, and they begin to. So I just wanted to mention that one part importantly. So these are just my opening comments, but I'm sure there are many wonderful things to discuss. So let me take a pause here.
Beautiful, sir. Nupur ma'am, would you
Those
like
were
to?
sure. Those were such great comments. So insightful. Thank you, Anilji. I love the way that you framed that. And I want to double click on something that you talked about. You referred to something as creative tension. And I love the way that you phrase that because I want to click on that both at the individual level and the organizational level if we have the time. So at the individual level, you talked about unlearning and relearning. And I've had to do that many times over, and I can relate to that. Perhaps many people in our audience can as well, which is at the individual level, I have found it difficult to not exactly change the outcomes. We all want to at some point in time, whether it's as a student who are on our call and they're motivated by grades and degrees, whether I was a banker and investor that wanted the pay packages and the bonuses. And as a business leader, of course, the promotion, the title is such a strong motivator. But it's in my latest S curve or personal transformation as a faculty member or coach or facilitator that my biggest unlearning, as you rightfully described, happened, which is to say, perhaps what the Bhagavad Gita also refers to and reminds us of, which is when we think about transformations, don't always be so attached to the outcomes and remain committed deeply to our actions without being so focused on the outcome. So my question stems from here. The process feels hard. It feels uninteresting. It's the messy middle, as Seth Godin had referred to it. But the outcome is actually highly desired and arguably in our own minds, at least, very, very deserving. So how can individuals then practically cultivate this love for the journey, for the transformation, for the sake of the transformation? How can we sustain that intrinsic motivation, especially given how burnt out leaders are and how burnt out students are when it comes to those daily actions? Are there any daily disciplines, rituals, if you can suggest to either begin that transformation journey, but more importantly, as you described, to sustain it, because that's where I think many people falter. If you could shed some light on that, that'd be super helpful.
Steve, the beauty of describing the love for the process is when you enjoy the process of learning. Of course, you are wanting outcomes, but you love learning. And you have the curiosity of the child that there is a little bit of playfulness, there is a willingness to experiment and to let go of, most of us while doing this, we get too much concerned about what if I fail, what would others say, and those kinds of things. But when you do this because say, I'm doing this for myself, I really love it, even if I'm contributing to a significant organizational transformation effort. The first thing, I have a deep love for learning and the deep love for being part of this effort of the journey. When you enjoy learning for learning's sake and you have that beginner's mindset and the childlike curiosity, I remember Pathik used to ask so many questions to us, along with his friend Vaman Danayat, who came for the first time to visit us. So many questions. And I was so wonderfully inspired by the quality of questions and the number of questions. So when you enjoy doing that and when you begin to then take responsibility and when you genuinely believe, because you have spent your time in choosing what kind of transformation are we wanting, what kind of people are we going to work with, including your choice of advisors, etc., if you are getting help from outside. But once you put the trust into a particular process, you know that you are going to do this irrespective of short-term results. because you know that is the way. Let me give an example. Suppose you believe that in co-creation, you are going to put effort to involve all your employees in an organization. Or, for example, if you choose for my personal health, I'm going to take the more difficult path of Ayurveda rather than the allopathic path of making quick results by taking some medication. When you've chosen that way, then you're willing to take that effort of spending the time because you believe in it. There is something, a larger reason behind this. It's like all great sports people, for example. Now look at the New Zealand rugby team, which has won the maximum number of world rugby titles.
Mm.
They have a whole system of preparing for it.
Mm.
The way the team, including how their training rooms are designed, the color schemes, the paintings in that, the beautiful rituals they believe in every day before they begin their training sessions, and the fun they have while training.
Mm.
It's just amazing. It's also when the Indian cricket team, for example,
Yeah.
when they won, when whichever Indian cricket teams have had a campaign which has been extremely impactful, it is because they have enjoyed this process of coming together, training together, helping each other, playing, having some fun, having some games. Even the coach has set up the best fielding award in the dressing room. People are getting that. So, these are the softer things behind the scene. And
Mm.
how they do the high fives. I don't know, you must have read about this.
Mm.
That sports teams which enjoy each other's success and they do more high fives and they celebrate that, they actually end up winning more times
Yeah.
simply because they have a culture of learning together, supporting one another, and enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
So they are not too pressurized by the outcome, because if you are too much keeping only the end outcome in mind, so it's like, Virat Kohli often talks about in his interviews to say, my job is to give my 100% to training. So whether it's my diet or it's my exercise or it's my training, I'm going to do my very best. And then I will leave the results. If I'm not successful on the field, okay, let me learn. So I scored my 50th century like I did against my New Zealand team in the World Cup semi-finals in 2020 through 23 at the Wankhede Stadium. But even after I broke the world record, I was back to my training routine next day because I was enjoying the process. For me, that was so much important. So I think that is very, very important to recognize that. And of course, on the spiritual path, we say you develop the love for what you are doing, and then you have complete faith in God and you surrender and say, God, many things are going to happen which are going to prevent me from being my best, but I am going to put my best. I love the journey. I love you and I have devotion, and now I leave it to you.
Wow.
So that's what this is about. Yes.
That last piece is a critical piece, the surrender. I love that. I think it's probably one of the hardest to relinquish that control, which we're so used to holding on to. But the minute that you can go with the flow, with the river, and not be so attached to the outcome and have fun in the process, like you described, whether that's individually or as being a part of a community, is such a powerful way to enjoy the process and pivot that thinking in one's own mind. So I think that's a great insight. If I may, I'll just ask one more question, which is related to this, uh, which is around, this is at an individual level, but also you referred to it in a corporate context, which is when global CEOs that I work with are constantly struggling with this tension of, you're expecting me to do a transformation for myself, for my team, or my firm, but I am so torn, Nupur, already between the sort of learning from yesterday, the preparing for tomorrow, and I still need to somehow act decisively, courageously, boldly today. So for the leaders that are on these large scale transformations and they're on this tightrope, right, of balancing between this deep reflective mindset, whether that's self and situational awareness, but balancing that with the urgency of taking this decisive and bold action so that they can transform their teams and their organizations. What would your advice be to them so that they're not over reflecting and analysis paralysis, but there's a bias to action as well, but balancing that much needed sort of time to slow down, reflect on such beautiful learnings that you describe, but also act upon them in a timely way. So the purpose remains anchored in the long term, but in the short term, you're still able to kind of balance the short-term transformation. Any advice there?
See, the first thing that the CEO has to first say to himself that I shouldn't pretend to have all the answers, because CEOs are grossly overrated. They actually don't have the answers.
I think that'll be the key takeaway.
Yes, so I think because by just putting yourself into that position and thinking you have all the answers is the biggest lie you tell yourself. So when they consciously choose who are the people in my team whom I should convene around certain questions that are really important to us, that's where the choice comes in. I think the whom am I going to enroll for what kind of questions that we have? And when you manage to create the right kind of, you manage to inspire people to create the right kind of teams around the right kind of questions. I think that is the most important job of a CEO, to identify the talent within the company, identify the people, identify the questions that we must take responsibility for, and bring the two together. Number two, be around to support the teams without actually doing their work for them. So which means really that's very important. Even if you know that the team is sometimes taking more risk than necessary or is being too cautious, you have to encourage them, and rather than give them the answers, ask important questions. So that's very important. And the third part is understanding that they are also learning and that they have a need for learning, the humility to learn. Because I think when sometimes we arrive in a powerful position like that, we think we have arrived. And then we are no longer learning. We are no longer. But in this respect, I must say that several people I worked with at CEOs, for example, one time I was coaching the chairman of LIC, Mr. Vijayan, and his three managing directors. It was fascinating to me to see the humility with which Mr. Vijayan was wanting to learn some of the fundamentals. And he would ask me some very innocent questions. And he would read. I remember R.D. Godrej, for example. And Visti Banerjee, who was here, worked closely with him. R.D. was so fascinated in trying to learn new ways that he would become a student of that subject. And it would never strike him that, he is the promoter, he is the owner, he is the chairman, or nothing like that. He is as curious to learn about that as anyone else in the room. So people who are remaining relevant because they are remaining with that open mindset and knowing they don't have the answers and having the humility and getting the right people around the right questions, I think this is what I would encourage them to do. And of course, enjoy the game, because you're a CEO, you better enjoy the game. That's right.
I love that. My takeaway.
Anil, you rightly say it. CEO obviously doesn't have answer to all the questions, right? But the ability of the CEO to identify the person to whom he need to assign a specific problem is something which is most important, followed by in the event of failure or otherwise, when they need resources. See, basically the team will need tremendous amount of resources, and CEO will have to allocate those resources to the team so that they become successful, because in success of the team lies the success of the CEO. Absolutely. If the CEO feels that it is this has failed, you can't do it, then it all goes in the negative direction. And Absolutely. Last but not the least, obviously, since CEO doesn't know the answer, he also has to learn along with the team. That's right. So he should have the ability to ask questions, right? And then get the answer and then judge. So I think well said, Anil. The CEO doesn't have answer, I agree, but they need to have ability for all the three things.
Thank you. Shivani, your question.
Yes, sir. I think I just wanted to be a part of this ongoing discussion, and I was enjoying this thoroughly. However, since you mentioned about your imaginal self at one point of time, sir, I think we always look into our, vision, how we want to be, what we aspire to be in our near future. So my question to you is, how do we embody transformation in our vision beyond personal success. So beyond the tangibility, beyond the, I would say, the material success that we feel that we want to achieve, how do we bring transformation in that vision?
See, the higher the purpose, the greater that you are being inspired. So many of us are very embarrassed by the loftiness of the vision we have in our heart. So, for example, if Shivani, you are in your heart thinking like Mother Teresa, I think don't be embarrassed by that. I mean, you are on the right track, because even at the level of imagination and the love for a purpose, if you become miserly in thinking about your own vision. See, as Swami Chinmayananda always said to us, the goal of life is not to reach the goal. The goal of the life is to stretch yourself and strive every day in commitment of the goal, the vision that you have, the purpose that you have. You are inspired by that. So keep your purpose and higher level, keep your vision lofty. Make sure that you really are in, because, for example, some people say my vision is that by 40 I want to earn so many $1 million and then I want to retire. I feel very sorry for such people, because you actually might earn those few $1 million, and then what will you do with your life? Then will you play golf for the rest of your life? And you become completely empty in your hearts when you have vision like that. So instead of having vision like I want to be number one, I want to be the most respected company, I want to earn maximum money. I mean, this is not a game of comparison that you want to be the number one. You say, what is the cause you stand for? And what is something in service of which you will lose yourself? And you will lose your ego. And you will lose that sense about doership, but that you say, I am part of doing something meaningful, which is taking responsibility to create greatness in the environment in which I am part of. I feel very proud. And therefore, when you talk about Viksit Bharat Pathik, it's so important that if we want India to become a fully developed country, then some of us have to ask the question, what does that mean? From the way I conduct myself, from the way I observe, I talk about my rights, but what about my responsibilities? What do I do around me? I elect representatives, but how do am I involved in citizenship? If something doesn't work, do I hold my representatives accountable? Do I even spend the time with my elected representative? It starts in RWA, where you live in your community. It goes to the local community in which we live. Then I am talking about country improving. But am I throwing garbage on the road? Am I breaking traffic rules? Am I breaking red light when nobody is watching? Am I destroying the environment? Am I empowering people to look after the women in my society? And I'm pointing out people who are doing things which are not safe for women. So all these things, the change that we want to bring about, our notion of what is a developed country, what is Viksit Bharat, it begins by my personally taking responsibility for that. Otherwise, it's just rhetoric. It's just a slogan to talk about Viksit Bharat. So the small things which I must do every day to say that I am a proud Indian. I am proud because I care. I care, therefore I serve. I serve, therefore I do the little things when nobody is watching. This is not like trying to show something and putting on social media that I got this award. No. In your own heart, you have to rise in your own eyes to say, I am worthy of being the Viksit Bharat citizen. And when we have that deep love in our hearts and we ourselves are observing the way we are leading our lives, then that movement will happen. Then that citizenship will happen. Then the Viksit Bharat will happen.
Beautiful, sir. I think you again reiterated your thought you had once taught us during your FTPs. It is the purpose that differentiates karma from labor. So I think, yes, it is beautiful, sir. Thank you so very much for your bold words. Maybe open the house for a few questions from our audience.
Yes, several questions are already there, I think, in the chat.
So we have, do we take the questions from the guests first, sir, or should we just launch it for the students? How do we go about it?
Whichever way, whoever has put in the chat box first, you can ask the
Sure,
question.
sir. So we have our student, Bridge, and sir, his question is, yeah, I'll just open the chat for him. Right,
Probably,
sir. He says,
probably Shivani, you can ask the students himself, the person himself to ask this question.
All right, sir. I'll do that. Bridge, are you there? Bridge Bhushan
Yes,
Tomar.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Sir,
please go ahead, Bridge.
my question is that what role does collective wisdom play in the shaping a leadership transformation? How one can tap into it without losing individual vision? And another question is, what advice would you give to young leaders like me who are transitioning across domains, say from the public service orientation to corporate leadership while seeking remain authentic?
Okay, let's first talk about the collective wisdom part. We have a colleague, a friend who lives in the Silicon Valley. Her name is Varna Ali. And she has a very beautiful framework. She says, first you get data, then it becomes information, then it becomes knowledge, then it becomes wisdom, and finally it is union. What's the knowledge and wisdom difference? Knowledge will help you to produce certain outcomes, but wisdom will help you to serve the whole. And union will help you to serve the well-being of all. So the difference between knowledge and wisdom is sometimes knowledge can be used even for very selfish goals, which are serving the very narrow interests of people. Because let's say you have great knowledge of AI and you are using it, let's say, to create frauds. Great knowledge. But when you use the word wisdom, you are talking about that knowledge being used to serve the larger whole. And when that becomes union, because now you are serving the well-being of all, it's not just your own local community that you're talking about. So I think when you talk about collective wisdom, it is that, see, no one person has all the answers as we were describing earlier. And when you learn from each other's answers, when you learn from each other's experiences, when you learn from each other's mistakes, for example, you become wise. And then you are tapping into the collective wisdom. There are also, by the way, wisdom not just of the human beings. There is wisdom of all living beings. When you're observing the animals, plants, the planet, the environment, you're also tapping into the indigenous wisdom of the people. So it's like wisdom is a much broader concept than simply like that. So collective wisdom is to observe and learn from the whole. That doesn't mean your own individual goals are not important. You are tapping into the collective wisdom so that your own individual role that you wish to play, you can serve that better. But if your individual role is how to maximize returns for you without paying attention to the whole, then I think you have to ask your second question on a young leader, what do you need to do? Then you have to ask yourself the question, what is success? What does success mean to you? And is your success going to be sustainable if you're only maximizing returns for yourself? So that's the other question on leadership and about what you talked about. But maybe there is this element to the second question that you want to ask more. So please go ahead.
May we have Srinivasan sir now? He's also posted a question.
Yeah, whoever posted the question next, that person can ask.
Sir, are you there?
No, I'm there, but before me, Shreya has asked a question.
Okay.
And there are a couple of more people, so they should be given a chance.
Sure, sir. So Shreya, are you there?
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Nupur ma'am and Patik sir as well. It was an amazing, discussion, and grateful to be a part of it. So my question is, when you were talking about the process of transformation, which is of course very hard fought, sometimes I feel that after the process is completed, there's a sense of detachment and emptiness. when we have reached the destination, and we probably anticipate that wow, it would be a moment of celebration, but why don't we feel that once we have completed it?
I learned something many years back from Malcolm Baldrige. One of the responsibilities of the people who get the Malcolm Baldrige Award is to be of service for the next few years on sharing your knowledge with others. Now, what does that mean? That means not only have you learned something and achieved something, but now you're enjoying the joy of sharing your knowledge and strengthening the system, because the solutions to today's problem is converted into a new process or a new system. But in anticipation of the future, you are continuously creating a learning environment where you are sharing your learning, encouraging people to be part of the learning so that you can prepare for the next level of transformation that you are talking about. So, for example, that is the beauty of the total quality, journey, that you never reach the destination because you are continuously improving. Yes. So it's not as if you define your transformation in a narrow way, that we will increase so much of profit, or in my case, I will achieve so much of weight reduction. Now that I have done that, it's the end of my, let's say, personal transformation. If I don't watch out, not only will I gain back weight, I may no longer enjoy the process of feeling that energy which I have, because I have cut down my weight and I'm feeling so much healthier. So I think this process of staying the course, enjoying the process, enjoying the learning, sharing things with each other is such an important part of continuously going that, because it is much more than reaching a particular destination. It's almost our responsibility to ourselves and to others to keep the juices flowing. So that the whole word about keeping the juices flowing, keep the energy, keep the candle burning is such an important part of that exercise. Yes. I think more hands are up, and I think Babu Raj has been putting some comments and asking questions here. Yeah, go ahead, Babu Raj.
Yeah.
Babu Raj may unmute yourself.
Yeah. Now, first of all, thanks for the invite and being here. It's always interesting, enriching to listen to your voice. But I think there are many other seniors here. So I always have two doubts in my mind, and maybe some seeking clarification from any one of you. One is that we all know that we are living in a world of chaos, and also at the same time we are also looking at an order. So like somebody has coined it as a chaotic life we are living in. So in this chaos plus the order which we are expected to look at it, and a paradoxical sometimes, where do you think that real transformation of leadership happens? One is that we can always say that these are things which is happening. Now, I was studying for a leadership level conversation and for a conference. I was looking at the last 10 years of our CSR budget of various companies which are looking at it. Why do you think organizations are not really looking at this data? And anyway, 2% of average PPT of the last 3 years are expected to be paid. But I feel that what is that which is making these leaders, what I call it as enlightened, so-called enlightened people, do not act on with a conscientious perspective, rather than trying to do what is required at this juncture? Is it because of not knowing, or is it because of conscious ignorance? I don't know. So I just thought I will pick your brain on this particular thing, which is also maybe my valid conjectures could be wrong. I don't know.
I want to invoke the spirit of my dear friend, Dr. Kathy Dan Miller, who invented the whole scale transformation process.
Yeah, we got trained by her. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Kathy always said something very remarkable. He said the reason leaders think in a very narrow way is because they do not have a personal opportunity to listen to the voices of different stakeholders. And they are not able to create one heart and one mind. And after she came to India, she modified that to say one heart, one mind, one soul. And what's the meaning of that? How many leaders actually go into the field to interact with people to take responsibility. Let's say in their mind, they are having some figures about employee sort of well-being. But how many of them have actually taken the responsibility? Let's say in a Mumbai local train, when somebody is traveling from 2 hours away and coming to your plant or your office, how many CEOs have actually taken the journey to understand what actually happens when that person travels the 2 hours and comes to work? Or when they talk about customers, how many of them actually observe customers in their natural habitat, or their suppliers, or their investors as to what is really important to them, or the community? When you talk about CSR, how many people there are taking responsibility not just for putting the money there, but actually going and interacting with the society for which you are investing that money and learning from what is working for them, what is not working for them? I think when people say something is important to them and creating value for some stakeholders is important, do they go and listen and observe and truly care for that?
Yeah.
So when people begin to care and take personal responsibility, they get a very different worldview. And then they get a whole system understanding of the transformation. Because it's a whole system. You can't just fix in one part. And you have your own notion of having some kind of an equation in your mind that you will press this lever and then you will drive transformation. You know the words, cascading vision, driving transformation. These things don't work. You don't cascade vision. You don't drive transformation. You have to co-create the excitement of the future and you have to enable transformation. Otherwise, you are assuming too much responsibility to say, I am the one. My friend Matthew Jacob is here, who has done some amazing work across different continents. And he's joining us from the US right now. He will resonate. I think he's done a lot of work with the Vatican and with also the church in bringing about transformation in the Vatican, for example. So when people take responsibility of this kind, where they want to really enable transformation, co-create where they are going, and truly listen to the hearts of the stakeholder to understand what really matters to them, then I think things begin to change. So the part of your CSR issue is the people who are allocating the money, they say, we will not take your money till you come and invest some time with the community and learn for yourself what you are investing this money for. Maybe they'll get a very different flavor out of that. Yeah.
But from your experience, why do you think that the wisdom comes only after 60 plus and not before that?
No. I think I have met many young people. For example, my dear friend Nipun Mehta, the founder of Service Space, the world's largest volunteer organization with more than 1 million volunteers. Nipun Mehta, when he was just out of Berkeley, he decided that his life is going to be one of serving. And so at a very young age, I think in his late 20s, he something dawned on him. But I think Rajesh Shedor has been having his hand up for a long time. Rajesh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a very, very interesting discussion. My question is, transformation normally is caused by two ways. Either it is pain-driven or it is aspirational-driven. By and large, in India, as a country or as a culture or as a people, we tend to do more transformation which is pain-driven, but not so much aspiration-driven. Like invention of artificial intelligence, internet for that matter, or so many other inventions the West has caused. Why we are not in that position to cause aspiration-driven transformation? Is it because of our culture or long history of slavery or educational issue? What is it?
It's really a complex thing to comment on, but I'll just want to say, I want to take personal responsibility for that by saying, we don't care enough. See, each one is very happy in just creating a small world of your own and being very happy in that and chasing that, what is in it for me kind of thing. We don't feel that sense of connection. We don't feel the pain of those. So we don't care. And even more than care, first of all, many of us are living in isolation, and we are not even aware of what's happening to people just outside our own homes, you see. So when that is the case, that we don't want to invest even time in becoming more aware, then if you are not being aware, then how will you even care? And even after you get aware, you close your eyes. You say, oh, this is not my problem.
Quite true.
When you develop that kind of an attitude, then of course these things are the downstream impact of that you are then becoming very self-serving in your thing. You don't deeply love. So I think if you love yourself, then you will love the country, you will love the community, you will take responsibility, and you will have the humility. Some people who care, by the way, and then they begin to criticize everyone else. Oh, then they become very idealistic. They put down everyone else.
Yeah,
that doesn't work, because we Indians are very sensitive and emotional as well. So if the person who is not living the right way, if you just criticize the person and put him down, things are not going to change. You must have the patience to sit and have a dialogue and show some love even for the person whose behaviors are currently not in the right direction. But when you invest time and you care for that person, and that person experiences your love, that you care for the person, then all of a sudden that person will be willing to examine their own ways. And then there'll be some hope for the future. So I think I don't know how, but the love for the country and the love for the community has to be invoked in our hearts. I think my favorite is, so every Tuesday in our campus, for example, students tell the life of a Paramveer Chakra, or they talk about some good news from the Good News India, right, in the morning circle. So I keep telling my students, invoke the positive news. Don't just get yourself exposed to the scandals that are happening around you, and develop that deep love. Let's celebrate what is happening and let's build on top of that, because it's very easy to get disillusioned in a country like India. Then you will never develop the capacity to make a difference, to observe small moments when people are taking responsibility. Inspire yourself from those and say, I want to be part of this group, even though that's in the minority. Then things will begin to change. Yes.
Yeah, and
Anil,
yeah, sorry.
sorry,
Why
I was just
why I
gonna.
find it sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. And why I find it surprising, because we call ourselves as spiritual capital of world, and with so much of lineage of spirituality we should have developed this wisdom long ago than compared to other countries, but unfortunately did not manifest.
For the
Yeah,
sake of enriching this conversation, may I take a contrarian view with complete innocence and suggest, I think the fact that the audience here today is a testament, and Anulji himself, that we are actually very aspirational. I think what Soil is doing is a prime example of that. And I think as a nation, we are one that's so proud in so many ways that, and I find creative solutions sometimes in the most humble situations. I don't know. Maybe it's the optimist in me. Maybe it's I'm a little bit still rosy-eyed and thinking that there are such creative and inspirational stories from the smallest nooks and crannies and gullies of India. And this whole concept that the West has now adopted of Jugaad, for example, which is very aspirational if you think about it. Yes, we may have not done AI on one hand, but we have, in fact, a rich history, I think, of the Ayurveda, an example that Anilji shared, or yoga, which is now being imbibed as these sort of more innovative and new age practices. And in the same way, I'm just for the sake of enriching the conversation, wondering if there is actually a lot more for us to be proud of. And I think personally, just hearing the story of talking about purpose is talked about in the West quite a bit, but here we're talking about soul. We're talking about and I never had a corporate management leadership conversation where destiny and soul and gurus are enriching the conversation in this way. So I'll offer that as a slightly more optimistic take on
Thank you.
it.
I think Vijay Jambal has his hand up, and then we are also running out of time. So Vijay, you want to ask? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anilji. I think it's a great time to ask a question. Like my question was to the point that you said, finding that call for each of us, right? And I think in some format or the other, we try and find that. But if you can just maybe, briefly, what is the process that if I have to find that real call that I have in my life, what should I do now? Like, what is the stepwise process I should follow to at least start that journey, to be able to reach to that level
Sure.
where I'm at least able to be closer to finding that call?
Sure. In one of the other episodes, when we were discussing purpose, we covered this, but I'll just briefly mention again. I think it begins with three very powerful but very simple questions. Who are the people in your life whom you deeply care for and why? Number two, what are their needs you are inspired to serve and why? And how can you use your own uniqueness, your own values, your own strengths to serve the needs of people who truly matter to you at this stage of your life? I think somewhere in your exploring, in your quest around these questions, you will discover what you actually deeply love and care for. And then you will actually find the cause. Yeah. So thank you, Shivani. It's over to you to round up the meeting.
So as we move through today's learning, let us remember that transformation is an ongoing journey. And with this, I'd like to thank Anil sir for his enlightening words, Mr. Pathekar Kothari and Ms. Nupuraria for their insightful questions. I'd like to thank all our guests, students who took out their invaluable time to join us today. Last but not the least, Mr. Thillai, Vimla, Priyanka, and Dakshita for their relentless support in coordinating and managing today's webinar. Thank you very much, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful time ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Shivani.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.